Okay, so now that I've set out as much of this section as I can using the dimensions that have come from the floor plan, I'm going to insert this section that you've got on both on Moodle and there's a copy on the P drive, so I'll just make sure you know where that is.
Yeah.
So here under Student Resources, if you go to Interior Design and then Construction 1, you've of course got the Balmain Warehouse folder, which hopefully you're used to navigating to, and then you'll see all of the drawings there. And so now in AutoCAD, I'm going to go to the Insert tab and then click the first Attach button. So you'll see there are actually two that say Attach, but the one that's got a cloud on it is for something completely different. That's for point clouds. So I don't think you'll ever need to use that. The one on the left with the page on it is the Attach tool. So then down the bottom you need to choose or make sure it says all image files. And then you can browse again to that same folder, so again on the P drive or Student Resources, Interior Design, and then Construction 1 and Balmain Warehouse. And just make sure it's the right section. So it's this one here, so it's page 5, yep. Okay, so when you're attaching an image like this, I can give some really good pointers here. Usually, you'll want to leave the insertion point option ticked. So you want specify on screen ticked there for insertion point. So leave that ticked, but then turn scale off or turn specify on screen off for the scale option. Okay, so really important that you turn that one off and then type in a scale. Otherwise it'll come in really, really small. So I'm going to make this 1,000. It's much better to make it too big than too small. Okay, so I'm going to leave the rotation option turned off as well. Okay, so it's just the insertion point option that I've left ticked. And now I'll click OK. And then you can see it is big. Yep, that's fine. So I'll just click somewhere and you can see it's coming really big, but now we're going to scale it down to make it the right size. Again, it's much easier to scale down than to scale up. Oh, just anywhere to the side. We're going to move it afterwards. So, yep, so you can place it anywhere virtually. So, it's got to be rotated as well. So, we could have rotated that using the option, but it's often easier to just place it and then use the regular editing tools to modify it. So now that we've placed it, and again you'll see that often images won't come in at the same size. That's why, again, it's good to just get it in there and then adjust it afterwards. So I'm going to click to select it just to show you what happens. With images, when you select them, it'll bring up a tab that's different to what you get with a lot of the other tools. So it says image there on that tab. And so to get the regular editing tools back, you just need to go to the Home tab and then you can click Rotate. As you normally would. So again, make sure you're back to the Home tab, then click Rotate. And then you can simply click a base point in the middle. And then type in 90.
Then type in what?
90. Which will of course rotate it 90 degrees anti-clockwise, which is the standard direction. Then we need to find a measurement. So I'm going to zoom into my plan now and check one of the sizes there. So using the measure tool, so on the home tab, of course, you've got the measure tool there. And I'm simply going to click a point on the bottom left corner and then a second point on the bottom right corner. And then, if you can't read that, it says 7820. And yours should be the same. Don't worry if it's slightly different. Yours might be 20 mil different. But we need to remember that measurement. Now, with the scale tool, there is a way of picking points on the screen and using that measurement. But what I usually prefer is to measure again and then type the measurements in. And I'll give you both examples. So, firstly, I'm going to use the measure tool again, and then zoom right in and click a point on the left of my building, so in the middle of that wall. And then a point on the other side of the wall, of the opposite wall. Okay, so now that measurement is 153,398. And I'm actually going to write that down. No, that's right, yeah. So now in this case, because we've all inserted the same thing, you can probably use the same measurement as me. But don't worry, when you're measuring, they will always be slightly different. And this is one of the big issues we had with one of the other classes. We had someone telling people that they could go in and measure off a JPEG drawing like this and take accurate measurements. And the fact is, you'll never be able to, because this is made up of pixels. These lines here, again, are just a bunch of dots or pixels on the screen. And you can see as you zoom in, you're going to lose detail. So the measurements are never going to be accurate. And it's the same as when you scale off a drawing that's been drawn by hand, or even one that's been done on a computer. Actually, if you're scaling off with the scale ruler, you're going to get the same level of inaccuracy, and it's just something you have to work with. So, again, I know this measurement is going to be different for everyone slightly, but it should be close to that. So 153,398, and I'm going to round that off and say we can round that off to at least 153,400. Okay, so that basic approach, or that starting point, is one that you can use when you're scaling anything. When you're working with printed out drawings, you can scale things using the same approach with a photocopier. So those two numbers give us the scale factor. We've got the size that we want it to be and the size it is. Okay, so now using the scale tool, so I'm going to click on scale and then select, sorry, on the modify tab there. So in the middle, you can see scale just next to stretch and before array. Okay, so I need to select my image, press enter, and it's going to ask for a base point. So I'm simply going to click a point on the corner there. The base point can be almost anywhere, but it doesn't hurt to have it on the image. And then the scale factor is simply the size we want it to be, which was 7820, divided by, in other words, / divided by the size it is. Yeah, when it asks for this, it'll say specify scale factor, and then you can just start typing. So 153,400. 0.3400. That's the scale factor. Okay, so that's the way people have always scaled things since the beginning of architectural drawing. Before computers, the approach was the same. So as long as you knew those two measurements, again, the size you want it to be, the size it is, then you divide one by the other, and that is your scale factor. And it works exactly the same as other scales, 1 to 50, 1 to 100. They're still fractions in the same way that is. So I always like to start off showing you that method. There is a method you can use without needing to know those numbers and simply clicking points on the screen. And it works, but you won't get a chance to check the numbers and see if they make sense and maybe round them off to something that's a bit more rational. So that's why I always like to start off showing that method. I think it probably is the better one. But, well, I know I said I'd show you the other method, but I think we'll just stick with that one. Later, maybe we can look at using what's called the reference method, which you can see is an option there with the scale tool. And when we start using Revit to scale, you'll see it's got the same method. And you might find that a bit easier. But, again, I think it's really important that you understand that basic principle of scaling. And if you want to remember the formula, again, I'll repeat it one more time. It's the size you want it to be divided by the size it is. And you can use the same approach when you're on a photocopier. If you want to scale something, you just type that percentage, convert it to a percentage and type it into the photocopier. And I've done that many times as well. So it's gone off a long way from my other drawings, but I can simply select that now, go back to the Home tab, click Move, pick it up, and then maybe I'll turn Auto off as well. And then just by eye, I'll place that in line with my other section. So you can see now that it is covering up what I've drawn. So I'll show you another good option. When you select the image, you can then right-click and then go to Draw Order and then Send to Back. So that's an option you've got with everything in AutoCAD, that Draw Order option. And now you can see my lines that I've drawn coming up over the top. So I'll select it and again move it. Oh, so you need to select the image first. Just click onto the border, yeah, and then right click and you'll see it. Okay, so I'm maybe going to pick this up now at a point that's easy to then relate to what I've drawn, maybe the corner point here. And notice I'm going to the centre line of the wall. So the centre of that line, thickness in other words. And I don't know, have you ever been told something different when you're taught by people who draw by hand? Have you ever been told that the line weight should go inside what you're drawing? Anyhow, you'll find a lot of older architects will still draw that way. So you won't always see it. See how here the line weights stick out? And that tells us that the lines are centred, or the line weight is centred over what's been drawn. But you need to be aware that in many cases, especially with older drawings, that won't be the case. In this case though, we know this has been drawn in AutoCAD, so the line weight is centred. So I'm going to pick there in the middle of this line. And now I can snap that right onto the corner of my floor. Yeah, sure. That was Draw Order. So when you select the image, right click, yeah, and then Draw Order. Okay, so now again on the Home tab, I've selected my image. Yep, so click Move, and then we'll pick it up, zooming in to get that base point right. And then again, snapping onto the corner of my floor to place it. And you can have a couple of goes at that. you can see then that the footings I've drawn here are a little bit deeper. Don't worry if yours are slightly different to what's in this drawing. This drawing is not perfect. Yeah. That's right. Well, so this drawing's wrong. So you've been given a measurement for that floor, which is what we've used, and then this has been drawn differently. So I think we can just go with the measurement we've used for that floor, and in this case then with the roof we'll trace off to get that height. But what it really tells you is that the measurements you've been given I think have been rounded off to make it a bit easier for you, when in reality the floor height it's not a round number. So you were given, I think it was 3 metres, and that's what we've used. Let's make sure, I'm pretty sure that was it.
Mine doesn't seem to, mine snaps further up.
Which part? Yeah, well, we'll see how here my floor is the same. So the picture's above my floor. Oh, okay, I'll come out and look in a sec. But yeah, so anyhow, so I'll give you a chance to maybe just make sure you've got something like that, and just show you one last little shortcut there. RE is the shortcut for regen, which is helpful if the points are becoming too big, the points you've used to draw the stair. And then the final thing I'll just show you before stopping the recording is that you can fade the image as well. So there it's still a bit hard to read the lines that I've drawn because the image is so bright. So I'm going to select the image again, and then you'll see on the image tab now we've got this fade option. I'm just going to increase that to fade that image so I can see my AutoCAD line work more clearly. So you need to select the image to get that. Okay, so again, you've been given a rounded off measurement for that floor height, and it's fine to go with that, and just keep it at 3 metres. So select the image, and then you'll see up here you've got the fade option. Exactly. Yeah, so just draw the outline to begin with. So remember in the brief it just says that you need to draw the outline. So make a roof layer, and so you have a roof timber layer. So I'll go through that in a moment though, but yeah, for now just make sure you've got the image inserted, that it's scaled, and that you've got that then located over your section, and maybe the image has been adjusted so that it's faded and sent to the back.